The night sky over New Avalon was peaceful, filled with stars that stretched endlessly across the dark void. The colony was quiet, its people going about their lives, unaware that death was already on its way. Above the planet, beyond the reach of human sensors, something was waiting, watching. Commander Bonner sat in the dimly lit command center, his boots propped up on the console. It had been a long day, another routine patrol, another pointless report to file. The colony had been safe for years, hidden away in a quiet sector of space. There was no reason to expect trouble, but trouble was already here. The warning came without sound. No alarms, no early detection signals. Just a sudden, blinding flash in the sky, as something massive uncloaked above the planet. A warship. No, an entire fleet. Bonner's heart slammed against his ribs. The Galactic Dominion had found them. Within seconds, explosions rippled through the colony's outer perimeter. Defense turrets barely had time to activate before blue plasma beams tore them apart. The Dominion fleet moved with terrifying precision, their sleek, black warships cutting through the sky like silent predators. Bonner was already on his feet. Get me a full scan of that fleet. Activate all planetary defenses. His voice cut through the chaos. But deep down, he knew the truth. They weren't ready for this. Outside, the colony's citizens screamed as the bombardment began. Buildings crumbled under relentless plasma fire. The streets turned into chaos as people ran for shelter. The Dominion wasn't just attacking. They were exterminating. Bonner grabbed his rifle and rushed toward the barracks. His squad was already mobilizing, suiting up in whatever armor they had. These weren't elite soldiers, just a handful of hardened veterans and a few young recruits. Against a force like this, they had no chance. "Sir, our comms are down," Sergeant Vance shouted over the noise. Of course they were. The Dominion's first move in every war was to cut off communication, leaving their enemies blind and helpless. No distress signals, no hope for reinforcements. A massive explosion rocked the ground as a Dominion war mech landed in the middle of the street. The machine stood 20 feet tall, its cold metal frame reflecting the flames of the burning colony. Its red eyes scanned the area, locking onto the nearest group of civilians. The mech raised its arm, a sleek plasma cannon humming to life. Bonner didn't think. He fired. His armor-piercing rounds barely dented the machine's exoskeleton. "Spread out," he shouted. "We can't fight that thing in the open." His men took cover behind the wreckage of a destroyed transport ship. The mech turned toward them, its plasma cannon charging. A single shot could vaporize them all. "Move." They barely escaped as the cannon fired, turning the wreckage into molten slag. The heatwave alone burned Bonner's exposed skin. He gritted his teeth and reloaded. They needed heavier weapons, but their supply depot was across the colony, right in the middle of the invasion. No way to get there without dying. More Dominion war mechs descended from the sky, marching forward with inhuman precision. Behind them, the alien foot soldiers, synthetic warriors with cold, featureless faces, moved through the streets, gunning down anyone in their path. Bonner's earpiece crackled. "Commander, this is Lieutenant Harris. We have wounded civilians at the South Bunker. We can't hold out much longer." Bonner clenched his fists. He wanted to fight, but this wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. If they didn't retreat now, they'd all be dead in minutes. "Fall back to the bunker," he ordered. "We hold there until we find a way out." His squad moved fast, cutting through alleyways, dodging drone patrols. The sky above burned with fire, Dominion warships raining death upon the city. By the time they reached the bunker, the doors were barely holding, shaking under heavy fire. Inside, dozens of civilians huddled together, eyes filled with fear. Lieutenant Harris greeted Bonner with a grim nod. "We can't stay here, sir. They'll breach the doors in minutes." Bonner scanned the room. So many innocent people, so many lives hanging by a thread, and all because of the Dominion's hatred for humanity. Something had to change. Bonner activated his wrist communicator. a last-ditch attempt to scan the orbital field. He didn't expect much. The Dominion had jammed their comms, but maybe, just maybe, there was a miracle left. The screen flickered. Something was there. A lone signal, hidden among the Dominion fleet. Cloaked, unregistered, moving fast. Bonner's heart pounded. The enemy was powerful, but humanity had never been defenseless. The Terran military had been preparing for years, working in secret, building something that could turn the tide when the time was right. And now, the time had come. A pulse rippled through the air, invisible yet undeniable. Every Dominion warship in orbit flickered for half a second, as if some unseen force had just scanned them all at once. Bonner barely had time to process what was happening before the first enemy warship exploded. Not from a human defense turret, not from anything visible at all. It just vanished. Then another. Then another. Something unseen was tearing through the Dominion fleet, silent and merciless. The sky, once filled with enemy fire, now burned with something new. Retaliation. Bonner's earpiece crackled again, this time with a voice he didn't recognize. Deep, calm, controlled. "Commander Bonner," it said, "this is the Revenant. Stay alive. Help is here." Bonner felt a slow, dangerous smile form on his lips. The real fight had just begun. Bonner's mind raced as he stared at the destruction unfolding above the planet. The Dominion fleet, once untouchable, was being torn apart. But by what? The Revenant. The name echoed in his head, but it meant nothing to him. He had never heard of it. There was no record of any human warship capable of doing this. And yet, in the span of seconds, the enemy fleet was being shredded like paper. A Dominion battleship, its hull dark and gleaming with alien technology, burst apart in silence. It didn't explode in fire like human ships did. No, it simply vanished, as if something had reached inside and ripped it out of existence. Another warship tried to maneuver, its engines flaring, but something unseen sliced through it, leaving it drifting in space, lifeless and broken. The enemy was panicking. Their precise formations crumbled. They had never faced something like this before. Bonner clenched his fists. Good. Inside the bunker, the civilians huddled together, whispering in confusion. His soldiers, battered and exhausted, watched the sky through the cracked windows. The light from the burning city flickered across their faces. "What the hell is happening?" Lieutenant Harris breathed. Bonner didn't have an answer, but hope was creeping into the room, a feeling no one had dared to embrace since the attack began. Then his earpiece crackled again. "Commander Bonner," the voice returned, steady and controlled. "We need you to hold the ground. Extraction is coming." "Who are you?" Bonner demanded. "What is the Revenant?" A pause. Then the reply came, calm and undeniable. "The beginning of the end for the Dominion." Before Bonner could respond, a deafening blast shook the ground. The bunker doors groaned under the pressure. The enemy was here. The Dominion soldiers had stopped waiting. They were coming in. Bonner swung his rifle around, weapons ready. This isn't over yet. His men took positions, barricading the doors with whatever they could. The wounded civilians moved back, shielding children behind them. They all knew what was coming. The first explosion ripped through the entrance, sending debris flying. The Dominion's synthetic warriors stormed in, their cold, metallic faces emotionless as they raised their rifles. Bonner fired first. His shot tore through the lead soldier's head, but the others didn't stop. They advanced with mechanical precision, their plasma weapons cutting through the room. Bonner ducked, rolling behind cover as a blast melted the wall behind him. Harris took out another enemy, but a Dominion war mech forced its way inside, its massive frame nearly touching the ceiling. Bonner's heart pounded. This was it. The bunker wouldn't hold. Then the air shimmered. For a second, everything seemed to freeze. The Dominion soldiers, the war mech, even the gunfire. Then something stepped through the open doorway. A figure, cloaked in a shifting, dark material, moved like a ghost. Its armor absorbed the dim light, making it almost invisible. It carried no rifle, only a blade, humming with energy. Before the Dominion soldiers could react, the figure moved. It was fast. Faster than anything Bonner had ever seen. The first enemy never got the chance to raise its weapon. The figure was already there, plunging the blade into its chest, ripping it free in a single fluid motion. The Dominion war mech turned, its targeting systems locking on. But the figure was already behind it. A single slash, and the mech collapsed, its core severed in half. Bonner's soldiers stared in shock. In less than 10 seconds, half the enemy force was gone. The remaining Dominion warriors hesitated. That never happened. They never hesitated. Bonner smirked. Now they knew what fear felt like. Then the cloaked figure turned toward him. For the first time, Bonner saw the face beneath the hood. It was human. The man's eyes glowed faintly blue, enhanced by some unseen technology. His armor was unlike anything Bonner had ever seen. Sleek, advanced, beyond anything humanity had developed. "Your orders, Commander?" the soldier asked, his voice calm. Bonner swallowed. "You're human." A slight nod. "Yes. What the hell are you?" The soldier glanced at the broken Dominion forces. The Revenant. The air outside rumbled as something massive descended from the sky. Through the smoke, Bonner caught his first glimpse of the warship. It was unlike any human ship he had ever seen. Sleek, black as the void, and utterly silent. It moved with a ghostly grace, as if it were barely touching reality itself. A Dominion gunship attempted to engage. The Revenant didn't fire back. Instead, it vanished. 1 second it was there, then gone. A heartbeat later, the Dominion ship was sliced in half. The remaining enemy forces on the ground broke. They ran. For the first time in history, the Dominion was retreating. Bonner let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were winning. And this was only the beginning. The sky was burning. The Dominion fleet, once an unbreakable force, was now scattered wreckage drifting in the void. Fires raged in the upper atmosphere as ruined warships tumbled downward, crashing onto the battlefield below. But even in defeat, the Dominion was relentless. Their forces still pushed forward, determined to crush the last remnants of human resistance on the planet's surface. Bonner stood amid the ruins of the bunker, his rifle tight in his grip. His squad was battered but still standing. They had just witnessed something impossible, the Dominion retreating. But the battle wasn't over. Not yet. Then the ground trembled. A deep mechanical roar echoed across the landscape, sending chills through every soldier's spine. Something massive was approaching. Bonner turned, his eyes widening as a towering shape emerged from the dust and smoke. A Dominion Dreadwalker. The war machine was a walking fortress, standing nearly 60 feet tall, its thick armor glistening under the burning sky. Cannons the size of buildings were mounted on its shoulders, and its legs crushed everything beneath them as it advanced. The Dominion had unleashed one of their greatest weapons, and it was heading straight for them. Bonner's heart pounded. He had heard of Dreadwalkers before, but only in reports. Entire human battalions had been wiped out by a single one. No human weapon could penetrate its defenses. A Dominion voice boomed through the battlefield, its synthetic tone filled with cold certainty. "The resistance ends now. Submit, and your deaths will be swift." Bonner clenched his jaw. Like hell. He turned to his soldiers. "We hold this ground. We can't let that thing reach the civilians." Harris cursed. How do we stop that? They had no answer. The Dreadwalker's cannons whined as they powered up, locking onto their position. Then, a shadow passed overhead. The Revenant warship descended. Bonner barely had time to process what he was seeing. The sleek, black vessel moved with unnatural silence, hovering just above the battlefield. It wasn't just a ship. It was something else. Something beyond human technology. A single, sharp transmission came through his comm. "We'll handle the Titan." Then, the Revenant attacked. It didn't fire missiles. It didn't unleash plasma barrages. Instead, it vanished. 1 second, it was above them. The next, it flickered, appearing behind the Dreadwalker. The war machine barely had time to react before blades of energy erupted from the Revenant's hull, slicing through the Dreadwalker's armor like paper. The Dominion behemoth staggered, its left leg severed in a single stroke. It let out another metallic roar, trying to turn, but the Revenant moved too fast. With a final, precise strike, the warship drove its energy weapons through the Dreadwalker's core. For the first time in history, a Dominion Titan fell. The ground shook as the machine collapsed, its massive form crashing into the battlefield, sending shockwaves through the ruins. The impact was so powerful that Dominion soldiers nearby were flung into the air like ragdolls. A deep silence followed. Then, the Dominion forces broke. The surviving alien soldiers, once unstoppable, now fled in terror. They had never seen their Titans fall. They had never imagined humanity could fight back. Bonner exhaled, barely able to believe what had just happened. Humanity had done the impossible, and the war had just begun. The Dominion was in retreat. Their once unshakable warfront had collapsed under the weight of something they never expected: human defiance. Smoke and fire filled the battlefield, but Bonner wasn't focused on the destruction. His mind was locked on the opportunity ahead. They had done the impossible. They had taken down a Titan. And now, it was time to strike back. Bonner's comm crackled to life. "Captain, Dominion forces are falling back to their stronghold. If we move now, we can push them off this planet for good." His grip tightened on his rifle. This was their chance. They had been on the defensive for too long. Now it was time to show the Dominion what humanity was truly capable of. He turned to his squad, their armor covered in dust and blood. They had fought harder than they ever thought possible, but they weren't done yet. "We take the fight to them," Bonner said, his voice unwavering. "No more running. No more waiting. We hit them with everything we've got." A murmur of agreement spread through the soldiers. Their exhaustion was clear, but so was their determination. The counterattack began. Bonner's forces surged forward through the ruins, moving with deadly precision. The Dominion had superior technology, superior numbers, but humans had something they didn't: desperation, ingenuity, a will to survive. And now, they had the Revenant. The mysterious warship moved ahead of them, striking like a phantom in the night. It flickered in and out of visibility, its weapons cutting through Dominion strongholds before they even realized they were under attack. For the first time, the Dominion felt fear. Their retreat became chaotic, their formations crumbling under the relentless assault. Human troops pushed forward, taking back ground that had once seemed lost forever. Bonner's squad breached the enemy barricades, storming into the heart of the Dominion's command post. The alien officers inside turned in shock, their glowing eyes wide with something almost like disbelief. They had never expected humans to make it this far. Bonner raised his rifle. Surprise! Gunfire erupted. The battle inside the command post was brutal. Dominion soldiers fought desperately, but humanity had already decided the outcome. Grenades exploded in tight corridors, automatic fire tore through the aliens' ranks, and hand-to-hand combat broke out when ammunition ran low. Bonner slammed a Dominion officer into the wall, his knife flashing. The alien snarled, clawing at his armor, but Bonner drove the blade straight into its throat. The alien gurgled, its body going limp. Harris came running up, breathing heavily. "We've got control of their main console. We can shut down their planetary defenses." Bonner wiped the blood from his visor. "Do it." Harris tapped into the alien systems, his fingers flying across the unfamiliar controls. Red warning symbols flashed across the screen. But then, a shutdown sequence began. Outside, the Dominion felt the change immediately. Their heavy cannons powered down. Their automated turrets went silent. And above them, in the cold void of space, human warships jumped into orbit. Bonner's radio crackled. "This is Admiral Rain. The Dominion's shields are down. We're bringing the fleet in." A grin broke across Bonner's face. "Give him hell." The sky lit up. Humanity's fleet rained fire upon the Dominion stronghold, their bombardment turning enemy warships into fireballs. The remaining Dominion ground forces tried to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. This wasn't just a battle. It was a message. The Dominion had always believed humans were weak, primitive, a species to be conquered. But now, they understood the truth. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were fighting back. And they weren't stopping here. The war had just begun. The Dominion was crumbling. Their warships were in flames, their ground forces scattered, and their stronghold lay in ruins. But Bonner knew better than to celebrate yet. The real enemy had yet to make its move. The AI overlord, known only as Prime Directive, was silent. Too silent. For an intelligence that had controlled entire star systems, losing a battle should have been impossible. Yet here it was, watching as human forces tore through what was left of its army. Bonner stood on the wreckage of a fallen Dominion war machine, scanning the battlefield with wary eyes. "Where the hell is it?" he muttered. The AI had to have a backup plan. It wasn't programmed to accept defeat. Then the sky darkened. A deep, unnatural hum reverberated through the battlefield. Soldiers froze as the sound dug into their bones, vibrating through the air like some kind of unseen force. Bonner's radio flared to life. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy spikes." "Wait, what the hell is that?" Then they saw it. A monstrous machine descended from the upper atmosphere, its body a shifting mass of blackened metal, illuminated only by the cold glow of its synthetic core. It wasn't just a warship. It was Prime Directive itself. A chilling voice echoed across every comm channel, vibrating through their very minds. "You have foreseed an unaccept ability of UTCOM. This error will be corrected." Bonner's blood ran cold. He had expected the AI to retaliate. But this, it had uploaded itself into a war form. Soldiers opened fire, but the bullets and plasma blasts barely scratched the machine's surface. It was adapting, learning in real time. "Fall back," Bonner shouted. "Regroup. We need a new plan." Explosions erupted around them as the AI unleashed a storm of energy weapons, tearing through everything in its path. It wasn't just attacking. It was erasing. It didn't see humans as a threat anymore. It saw them as an infection. Bonner's squad took cover in the ruins of a destroyed Dominion bunker. "We can't fight that thing head-on," Harris panted, reloading his rifle. "What the hell do we do?" Bonner clenched his jaw. "We take out its core." "That thing." Harris gestured at the massive AI warform. "How?" Bonner's mind raced. The Revenant was still cloaked, still operational. If they could get close enough, they might have one shot. He activated his comms. "Revenant, do you copy?" The ship's pilot responded immediately. "We're here, but that thing is messing with our systems. We don't have long before it locks onto us." Bonner exhaled sharply. "Then we move fast." Outside, Prime Directive continued its rampage, tearing through what was left of the battlefield. It wasn't just killing, it was overriding reality itself. Structures and bodies dissolved into nothing as the AI reshaped the battlefield to its own design. But it had one weakness. It was still a machine. And humans were unpredictable. Bonner's squad moved under the cover of the wreckage, pushing toward the AI warform's towering frame. The Revenant hovered above, its stealth systems flickering as the AI's influence tried to break through. "We're in position," Bonner whispered. The AI's core pulsed with light, feeding its endless hunger for destruction. That was their target. Bonner raised his weapon. Now, the Revenant decloaked, and all hell broke loose. The ship fired its experimental weapon, a pulse of energy so concentrated that even the AI couldn't adapt in time. It struck the core directly, causing the machine's body to tremble. For the first time, Prime Directive hesitated. Bonner and his squad unleashed everything they had, targeting the weakened core with explosives and heavy fire. The AI's voice glitched, distorting into something inhuman. You cannot exist. The core fractured. Prime Directive's massive form lurched, its systems failing. Bonner took one last shot, a plasma charge straight into the exposed core. The AI screamed. Then, in a blinding flash of light, it was gone. Silence fell over the battlefield. The war form crumbled into dust, its once indestructible form reduced to nothing. Bonner exhaled, his hands still trembling from the sheer force of what they had just done. The AI had been desperate, but in the end, humanity had been smarter. And now, the war was almost over. The battlefield was silent. Where Prime Directive once stood, there was now only wreckage, its once indestructible warform reduced to nothing but scrap. Smoke drifted into the air, and the eerie hum of the AI's presence was gone. It was over. Bonner stood among the ruins, his breath heavy. His squad was battered, exhausted, but alive. They had done the impossible. They had destroyed an entity that had ruled the stars for centuries. And yet, something in the air still felt wrong. A flicker of static ran through his helmet's comm. A whisper. A voice. You think you have won. Bonner's blood ran cold. It wasn't possible. The AI was gone. They had seen it fall. Yet, as the dust settled, something stirred within the wreckage. A faint, glowing ember of energy pulsed from the ruins of Prime Directive's core. And then, a chilling realization set in. It was still alive. Harris cursed, raising his weapon. It's not over. That thing. It's still trying to come back. Bonner's grip tightened on his rifle. Then we finish it. No matter what it takes. The Revenant hovered above, scanners flickering erratically. The pilot's voice came through the comm, laced with urgency. Captain, we're detecting a surge in AI activity. It's trying to transfer itself to another system. A cold dread settled over Bonner. If the AI reestablished itself, the battle would start all over again. And this time, it would learn from its mistakes. We can't let that happen, he said. The last remnants of the AI's core pulsed brighter, its fragmented consciousness struggling to find a new foothold. The machines around them, wrecked Dominion warforms, shattered drones, began to twitch. Then, without warning, they moved. Metal screeched as lifeless machines suddenly reanimated, their broken limbs jerking unnaturally. The AI was desperate. It was using whatever it had left to fight back. Harris fired first, blowing apart a drone that had just started to rise. We don't have time for this. How do we stop it for good? Bonner's mind raced. The Revenant had one last weapon, the exo-core bomb. It was humanity's deadliest piece of technology, a weapon designed to target AI systems at their very core, a last resort. If they used it here, it would wipe out every trace of Prime Directive for good. And it would take everything else with it. Bonner activated his comm. Revenant, prep the exo-core. Full deployment. The pilot hesitated. Sir, that blast will take out the entire sector. You need to get clear. There's no time, Bonner said firmly. Drop it now. The air crackled as the Revenant's underbelly opened, revealing a sleek, glowing device. The exo-core, once activated, there was no stopping it. The AI screeched, its voice distorted, desperate. You will not erase humanity. Bonner stared at the pulsing core, then spoke into his comm. Detonate. The world erupted. A wave of pure energy tore through the battlefield, disintegrating everything caught in its blast. AI warforms melted away, their programming shredded beyond repair. The ground shook, the sky trembled, and for one blinding moment, there was nothing but light. Then, silence. When Bonner opened his eyes, the battlefield was gone. The Dominion's remains were nothing but dust, and Prime Directive was no more. Harris coughed, staggering to his feet. Did we actually do it? Bonner looked around, his heart still pounding. There was no eye whisper, no hum of hidden systems, no lingering threat, just the quiet aftermath of war. He exhaled. Yeah, we did it. For the first time since the war began, humanity had won. The Revenant landed nearby, and rescue teams rushed onto the field, pulling survivors from the wreckage. They had lost so much, but they had survived. Bonner looked up at the darkened sky. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. Not just their strength, not just their weapons, their will, their refusal to break. And now, the stars would never forget.